anything I wanted to fucking do. People need to not message us on Discord while we're doing a podcast. When they know we're doing a podcast. Okay. Hello and welcome to the 3-on-1 podcast. We are live counting down to the conference championship for the A7FL. I'm Matt Ryan, joined as always by Big Rob Fabian and Corey Hammond. Guys, the glasses come off because the focus is set. The vision may be a little blurry, but we know where we're going. Bullhead City, Arizona. But first, we have a detour, and that is Cincinnati Woodward Stadium this Sunday afternoon at 1 p.m. We'll be calling the action live, not only on A7FL.tv, but also on Caffeine and Fox 5.2. Guys, being on Caffeine is awesome. We had our second game run on there earlier today. Home of IRL, home of the X Games now, and a whole bunch of other great content. This is going to be awesome, and we're so excited for what's going to happen. But the thing we're excited more about, guys, we got to get into it immediately. The Nightcrawlers and the Watchmen. Big Rob Fabian, Corey Hammond. That is our first game of the day. Corey, I'll go to you. What are your thoughts heading into what could be one of the biggest games of the year?
I think if you asked us this time last year what would be the dream matchup, division versus division, I think unequivocally most people would have said, if they weren't biased, that a rematch of the Rare Breed and the Tampa Bay Nightcrawlers would have been the matchup that I think most people would have wanted to see. And there was a lot of doubt at times, whether it was the preseason or right before the season started, if that was even going to be a hypothetical possibility for, a million reasons. But then when it comes down to it, with all of us, being a little bit New Jersey biased, I think at times, feeling confident in the New Jersey teams and how great they were and have always been. And, this is the first time we're not going to see a Jersey team in the championship matchup since the last time they were out, which was 2018, and it was two Baltimore teams. But those two Baltimore teams, in essence, are now one, maybe under the radar, maybe because of the bias I was just talking about. They got back to where they needed to be, where their destination has always been. They beat guys like Huff, which they've always struggled against. They beat a team in the U, which has knocked out the Rare Breed many a time. And now they get a chance to get that much closer with maybe the most wide open Final Four that we've had in what seems like the decade of the A7. But what's even more serendipitous is that the Tampa Bay Nightcrawlers, in a game which all of us would agree, I think, multiple times on this show over the almost year that we've been on. And speaking of that, don't forget to check us out, our year anniversary live in Bullhead. But the serendipity of the Nightcrawlers.
I think we're back. Yeah, we are. We got Rob's head in the frame. And I'm Matt. There's Rob. Hold on, Rob got bit by a cat, but we're back.
Yeah, I got that.
And unfortunately for New Jersey fans, the only moon left not in Cancun, right there, right, Rob?
Well, that's great. You're right.
Oh, man, that's Greg. All right, well, I shouldn't have had to feel like I had to make the joke then.
The moon joke.
But I mean, listen, I talked this off the air. That's my bad. Rob, Watchmen, nightcrawlers. Who do you think is the one guy for the Watchmen that sets the tone as the difference maker? In a similar way that Nick Mays, I felt like, was that guy against the U. Who do you think might be the person that maybe most fans aren't like 100% aware of, that on Monday morning they're gonna be like, damn, this guy from the Watchmen is nice?
Dang, that's tough. There's so many talented guys on that roster. By default, only because they didn't play him before, I would have to say Ace. And it's not taking away anything from what OG Buck is going to do, because Buck is Buck, but they know Buck. They played against Buck in a pressure situation, so they kind of know Buck. But Ace is going to pop out. Ace is going to be the one where the guys from Vegas or the guys from Ohio or whoever, they're going to be like, oh, that's the guy we didn't pay too much attention to in the regular season, because, again, they weren't on games of the week. We couldn't watch this as they were telling us to do most of the time. We could only watch it when they came to New Jersey. So, but, me being a former player, I played against 98% of the guys that are on that team. So even I know, Ace is probably going to be the one that pops out the most. And that's really, and still, it's a tough question, because you got that defense. Like, what are you going to do against that defense? With Nick Mays, with Quentin Bray, with Wolverine, with Freight Train. What are you going to do with that defense? So it's very hard to pick. And then Butler's been going crazy all season. So it's very hard to really narrow it down to just one player. But if I had to pick one, gun to my head, I have to go with Ace.
Yeah, it's always good to go with Ace. I think the one thing I would say about Ace is I think everybody's pretty aware of Ace. I have been saying Amari Thomas over and over again, because as a running back, as a tone setter, he caught a bunch of passes, one of the touchdowns out of the backfield, and I think he's going to be huge. My question for the Watchmen defense, when the Nightcrawlers are on the offensive side of the ball, we know that whether it's Logo Davis or it's Mark Bagway at quarterback, it seems like they're pretty committed to that fast and loose style at quarterback. So the roster construction of a Watchman, to me, feels a lot like that more traditional defensive linebacker structure, in which you look at the guys that are chasing down a guy like Mark Bagway, they'll catch me every time. Twice every Sunday, it seems like, right? There's a joke, but we play on Sunday. But are those guys who are great run stoppers and great defensive ends, and when they put on pads, they're probably, 3-star, 4-star, 5-star level athletes. Are those the kind of guys that have the agility and quickness and speed to contain a Mark Bagway, a Logo Davis, and make them have to play more traditional style? Because I think of the one weaknesses, or maybe the potential weakness that I see maybe popping up for the Watchmen, is if they don't have the athletes to stay, stride for stride with Mark Bagway, and he's breaking, contain, and making things happen on the ground. All that talk about, I really haven't seen the Nightcrawlers commit to a run game. Doesn't matter at all if Mark Bagway is going to get 100+ yards on the ground. So as great as that Watchmen defense is, and as difficult I think it is going to be for that Nightcrawlers team to at least get a rhythm going, if Bagway's able to be that difference maker that we saw him be last year against most of these same guys that you just mentioned, that might be the one area where the Watchmen better have in their bag of tricks a way to counteract that. And look, Freight Train, Nick Mays, Quentin Bragg, those are dudes that are great football players. But are they fast enough if Mark Bagway's, getting around that edge, getting around that corner? And that's going to be one of the things that I'm looking for when that side of the ball is facing head to head.
I think the best part about the Watchmen as a totality is their depth. And being that they're so deep, phrasing in their defensive back pool, their D-line, their linebackers, they're very deep. And what I did notice from them when they played against the U was when the U started getting things going, the Watchmen adjusted. So, and they adjusted fast. They adjusted very fast, which is what I thought
they had a good game plan. They stopped the run.
Right.
Then when they adjusted, they stopped that. Right. I think the Watchmen have been well run all season.
That's honestly maybe one of the things we didn't talk about so crazy, but I think probably one of the more impressive things that the Watchmen were able to do, because this game is about matchups and adjustments. A7, if you break it down to its bare bones, matchups and adjustments. If I'm an offensive lineman and I know for a fact I can block this guy into that guy, I'm telling you to run it left, because I promise you we're going to get at least 6 yards. And capitalizing off of those adjustments, matchups, and understanding the team you're playing against is going to be what wins it's going to be what wins any A7 game. But more so on this one, it's a bunch of guys who slightly do know this Florida team better than anyone else in A7, if I'm being honest. No one else knows the Nightcrawlers the way the Watchmen do. No one.
And I wanted to bring that up.
They're the best team. Yeah.
I wanted to bring up that rematch. This is a rematch. This is a rematch from last year's second round of the playoffs, and it was the game of the year. You can make the argument that the championship game between the BIC and the U but when you look at that game and you're talking about making adjustments, the one thing that the rare breed, the predecessor to the Watchmen, you could say, did was they were able to make those adjustments later in the game, and it came down to Buck taking himself out and putting in Lenny Manziel, shout out Lenny Hedrick, when it comes to making that adjustment this Sunday. Is it going to be leading with gauze, leading with your knockout blow, and then walking them down kind of a Philly shell, and then using it in the second half and switching over to a Rokeem Chaney? Is that something that they're going to have to do? Because the thing that caught the defense off guard last year was making that switch and going off of quick plays. The Nightcrawlers have an NFL All-Pro now in the secondary as opposed to last year, but do you think that the Nightcrawlers have the players, Corey, to make those adjustments on defense that they weren't able to do in the last 2 minutes of the game they played last year?
Well, I think what I can see, at least, we'll find out, but I think what I can see at least is the guys that they have playing the skill positions on both sides of the ball are that level of top A7FL athlete, including DRC, which I think in a pinch, we might even see him on the offensive side of the ball. There's no reason that he can't go in there and make something happen, either for Mark Bagway or to Mark. Who knows what we'll do, but I think DRC is going to obviously come to play, and he didn't come and dedicate his time, his energy, and go to Ohio to have a bunch of guys that are going to be talking about it for the rest of their lives that they beat an NFL guy from Baltimore, beating him. I don't think he showed up to do that. So I think they're going to go in their bag, and I think they can make the adjustments on that side of the ball and in those positions to the perimeter of the offensive and defensive sets. But my question is going to be is what we saw from the Watchmen against the U, a team that all year about the U, we talked about how their trench game is that level, how their offensive line was pushing people around, how their defensive line with a guy like Burton in the middle was a potential defensive player of the year type of candidate based on some of the numbers he was putting up. The Watchmen made those guys from the U look like they weren't that good. And there was two offensive lines, and Rob mentioned it first. One offensive line would go in for Buck, and then a fresh new guy, 6'4", 340 pounds, coming in for John Gauze. And the Nightcrawlers have a linebacker that I think can snip out the run and take care of business. But do they have the defensive line guys, the offensive line guys, to equalize what might be the biggest strength, in my opinion, that the Watchmen have, because they can make all the adjustments based on their wide receivers running double moves, or Mark Bagway only goes with two offensive linemen and is juking guys and making special plays happen because he's just better than the guy in front of him. But I don't know if they're going to be able to have either the actual personnel or the depth at that personnel to make those adjustments on the offensive defensive line, which I think is going to be, in my opinion, the biggest discrepancy when the two teams are head-to-head. Because at quarterback, as much as we love Mark Bagway, you cannot tell me that Mark Bagway is that much better than the combination that we've seen of John Gauze and OG Buck when they're clicking. Wide receiver-wise, we have tons of great talent on the Nightcrawlers. Ray Chalk. When Logo Davis goes back out there, it's Mark Bagway. We saw that guy Keese go off a bunch of times. And then obviously I think DRC might be playing that wide receiver. Rob talks about it all the time. Ant Mo, Sly Boogie. The defensive backs for the Watchmen are elite level as well. And they're also tall. They have range. They can get beat by a half a yard and make up for it with their with their length and their jumping ability. So I think the matchup really and the scheme of where this comes down to, and what I think is going to makes the storyline of this game so great. For me, as much attention as we should put on the NFL All-Pro, unless he's playing that quarterback position, which maybe he does, for me, Mark Bagway has proven in the little time we've seen him that he's that big of a difference maker in our league. Going up against what the Watchmen put together in a Baltimore super team of guys that are experienced in this league, ultimately talented, high level, IQ and execution, it's going to be Mark Bagway, Mark Winway, the difference maker that is going to bring him above a roster that I think is constructed to win a championship? Or is it going to be that depth, that 40-man roster to the 25? Watchmen are bringing 40. The Nightcrawlers so far, I think, is 25. The depth, the talent, the experience. That's going to be the matchup. And I think when we are done with that game and we move on, the winner is going to be whoever gets to that storyline. Because if the Watchmen can get a difference maker type of performance from somebody, or the Nightcrawlers can raise the level of the rest of their roster to match the Watchmen, I think that those are going to be the swings in this game to see who wins.
Well, to your point, Corey, I think when we talk about the Watchmen and the Watchmen defense, we've seen them become destroyers this season. It might be one of the best defensive units we've seen in a year where we saw in the Northeast some great defensive players. We saw Trey Baskerville stand out. We saw some key players on the Patterson U stand out. Nick Mays has a tremendous year in front of him. But when we look at the only team to beat the Baltimore Watchmen, it's a team with a lot of similar comps to this Nightcrawlers team, and that is the current, no longer defending A7FL champion Trenton BIC, which is still weird to say. Like, we can all admit it's weird that the BIC and the U aren't in the conference finals, right? Like, that's no shade on Baltimore, but the last 2 seasons was defined by that rivalry, and now we walk into having a brand new A7FL champion no matter what on the other side of this. Me as a fan, I'm very excited. But as a fan of how the BIC play, I'm disappointed not to see them, but I'm excited to see what we get out of here. But Rob, do the Nightcrawlers have a sufficient comp to the BIC in their ability to extend the field, their ability to throw a whole bunch of different looks at you, things that the U, to be quite honest, weren't able to do, and they weren't able to make the adjustments later in the game. In that second half, they were zipped by that Watchmen defense. They were shut down in that second half. And I don't know if that would have happened to the BIC in that same situation. What do you see about these potential comps, and do you think that might be enough reason to give Tampa a bit of an advantage walking into Sunday?
Tampa, in my opinion, does have a slight advantage in a lot of their players aren't players that are known. We don't know how fast some of these guys are. We don't know how strong some of these guys are. We don't know some of their football knowledge. We don't have enough footage. It's just not enough footage to really say, besides Mark Bagway and Logo, what's really going on Tampa. We might not have even seen a quarter of what they're capable of. So that, to me, gives them the slight advantage. As far as the comp, comparing them to a BIC, I want to be very clear in saying I think BIC, with their full roster of people that were supposed to show up, is still one, if not the best team in the league. And I think they're very comparable to a speedy, quick, receiver-heavy, quarterback-moving nightcrawlers team. I do think that, which is why the slight bit of doubt. I'm going for the Watchmen. I'd like to see the Watchmen go all the way. They have a mission. To watch this thing is catchy. It's everything I've wanted to see in an A7FL team. They're doing it. Go Watchmen. But when it comes to the only team that they lost to this year, they lost to BIC. And the only other team, in my opinion, that compared to BIC, a full roster BIC, is the Nightcrawlers. So I do think there's a slight chance that maybe, not even that the stage is too big, but maybe, but then I have to respect the fact that the Watchmen didn't have Ace either. They lost because they put Lenny in, which is very big for me. Maybe it's not big for other people, but that kind of took the game apart. They were kind of going jab for jab until Lenny Manziel went in and did something weird, and that was GG's. The game was over at that point. So it's a mistake situation. If the Nightcrawlers are able to capitalize on mistakes, or if they can realize early that, hey, we have more of an advantage against Ace than we have against Buck. Buck is tearing us up, but they're going series for series. If we throw everything in the kitchen sink at Ace and stop them on that series, but we score, that puts us up. If Buck scores, we tie, but we know Ace is going in. All we have to score and then stop Ace. Then that's just an example of what they can do, or what their mentality might be going into this game on Sunday. Again, personally, that's the only comparable comp. A full roster BIC is the only comparable comp to the Nightcrawlers. Other than that, we haven't really seen enough to really say who they have, what they have, or how they even play, to be honest.
Well, let's take a look at some of the stats here for what we got from Logo Davis. He was 7 for 10. 118 yards, 1 touchdown. He threw a pick, though, but that was in their game against the O-Town Orange. Having that option at quarterback when Mark Bagway, much like Trey Robinson, who's playing in our 4 o'clock game, having that kind of 1-2 punch is as dangerous, I think, as having Buck and having Ace. Because you have two guys who can beat you with the deep ball, because Logo can chuck that ball downfield. And the same thing with Bagway. He can whip that arm like a cannon. And to me, that extending the field, that trying to keep that defense away from you, and that Baltimore defensive line and Nick Mays up front, devastating and dangerous. But if they're able to slip away and kind of create opportunity, Corey, I don't know what we're going to see, but I do think that Tampa hasn't shown us everything yet, to what Rob said, and I think that's their biggest advantage. That's their biggest advantage in this game, is the unknown factor. Baltimore has the luxury of being the only other non-Florida team to play them in an A7FL game. So there's a little bit of institutional knowledge there, but the new looks they're throwing at them, the inclusion of DRC, I think those matchups are going to be really interesting. I think that when it comes down to it, as we saw in the games we had last week, the tone's going to be set on the first drive. The first drive of this game is going to let us know who dictates, and Rob, if you disagree with me, please let me know
What
where
I
am I
think-
going wrong, because I know it's also a depth thing, but momentum as we saw between those two teams, momentum is such an important thing. The Watchmen in the game against the U got it to the half, it was tied. Came out the other side of it and had the momentum coming into the half and completely shifted the tide of this game and shut out the U in the second half.
Well, games where you're playing in, under the lights, prime time, championship level, you're traveling to a neutral site, all the pomp and circumstances that surround a Final Four game. That first drive and sometimes the whole first quarter is like that heavyweight boxing match where guys are throwing the jab out, kind of seeing what is going on, getting into a rhythm, and then moving forward from there. And what we saw in the two games last week, even the game that I thought looked to me at times to be a lot more of a blowout in the Insomniacs Sick-Witted game. At halftime, one was 13-12. I think the other one was 12-12 or 13-13. They were basically mirror images of each other in the first half. One team got out in front early. The other found a way to respond, kept it close, got it to halftime, and then both the Watchmen and the Insomniacs put their coaching staff to work at halftime, made adjustments. The other side wasn't able to make the adjustments. And the things that we saw work in the second half for both teams were both of those teams, the Watchmen and the Insomniacs respectively, figuring out what was going to work for the rest of the game, while the other side was still kind of, trying to tape together and Frankenstein together a game plan that would work. And you saw what happened with Sick-Witted and the U. It just didn't work in the second half. They fought as hard as they could with the grit and the championship medal that they had. And then it came down to it. They just weren't the better team on that day. So when we talk about Nightcrawlers and the Watchmen, that first quarter might seem like a similar situation. And Matt, you say the only thing that I really disagree with you on your premise is, A, the Nightcrawlers not being known is in general a thing for all of us, except for the guys that make up half of the roster at least of the Watchmen, because they played most of this team head-to-head last year in the same exact situation. And I think they're not going to be surprised or mistaken at all who Deontay Henderson is over the middle, who Ray Chalk and some of the playmakers that are there for the Nightcrawlers are. I don't think they're going to be surprised at all. What I think this game is really going to kind of test is the togetherness of the super team, and that that thing that we talk about with the Nightcrawlers, that they haven't shown us anything yet and they haven't played anybody yet and there's still all this left on the table. They also haven't practiced it against a live, competitive team. If you're trying to figure things out and you're in the Final Four and you're facing a team as experienced and as talented as the Watchmen, all of these drives, all of these possessions are going to matter. So if they put in a Logo Davis, who I think we proved to us that he's a really good quarterback in the Florida division, if they put in a Logo Davis and he struggles against the top level of competition from the Watchmen defense, and they waste that drive, and then this game comes down to like a 40-34 type of situation, what the Watchmen have done all season is figure out against top experience and as who they are as the Watchmen. And it's been years drives, too, all of against top comp, against great competition. They put in a Logo. The Nightcrawlers showed up every week and won by 60 plus, and most of the season they didn't even have their top dogs in. So they're just getting into a rhythm, and maybe that works out for them. And they play a lot of flag together. They know how to play football, don't get me wrong. But if they do the two quarterback system like the Watchmen do, and one guy doesn't fit the way the other guy does, that might be a wasted possession in the game where one wasted possession could lose you a chance at Bullhead. I'm sorry, Matt, my ears are not serving me correctly.
Oh, sorry. I coughed off camera and I put my mic down. Rob, you're especially emotive this evening. What are your takes on our takes? Because I feel like they may be different takes than our takes. So your take, please.
Corey just always has like these spicy, is the team gonna meddle takes that I always come to shake my head like, why does he always go there? Like, we gotta remember, whether we watch them play together or not, these guys know each other. So that's the only reason why I was like, that takes a little. I get it. I respect the take. I don't really. I just always wonder why Corey's mind goes straight to the cohesiveness of a team.
Because look at what they did to my man's the last few years. He's been passed around. He's an orphan boy.
Right, that sounds like PTSD. That doesn't sound like what everyone is going
Well, how about this? The BIC, right? BIC, when they played the U, they were off for like 6 weeks. 7 weeks, if you include the actual competition that they were playing, was not on the same level. So they had basically 2 months off. Right? They had 2 months off, and that. You want to put this Band-Aid off? I'll rip it off right now. I'm tired of it. All right, because the narrative behind BIC and the U, I'm sorry, and both teams are going to hate me for this. BIC sucks, and they lost because they were dependent on other players and not the players that are homegrown in the core of their team. That's why BIC lost. The U are old and need to recruit. That's why the U lost. The U are not good enough. The U shouldn't have been here. Everyone's gonna hate me for this take, but the U shouldn't even have made it as far as they made it. BIC shit the bed and snatched up a bunch of great players whose priority wasn't the same thing as the team's priority. They can sit together now and say, oh, well, God's plan was for us to not win the chip. Sure. But in the beginning of the season, everybody was talking hot shit, BIC, including me. That's why I'm a little bit frustrated with it, including me, because there's no way in my mind a full roster BIC team loses to anyone. But let's just rip the Band-Aid off. I'm kind of tired of talking about either or team, because the U, every week they played a big team, I was kind of like, ooh, they made it. They got through another one. Ooh, they made it. They got through another one. We were watching the U deteriorate. I love Moon, but Moon is missing that gear. Pablo was not the answer the way people were trying to gas him up to be the answer. He was not. Because if he was the answer, I'm taking a corner.
He did a good job. Carlos Crosland in 2022 was not the same guy we saw in 2023. He was a significant upgrade to the guy who was quarterbacking the Gators because Ace got hurt. But the problem was, exactly as you said, Rob, Crosland wasn't supposed to be the starting quarterback for this team. The starting quarterback for this team is the second starting quarterback for the Baltimore team that's playing this Sunday.
Baltimore Watchmen. So my thing is, you have to recruit a quarterback. You have to focus things around Mims and running back. That you brought new life to the team. I'm not even saying their recruiting was bad, but they don't have a quarterback. You had two guys in there that really couldn't get it done. The offense wasn't clicking. The U got as far as they did because they're just guts. They're just a tough team.
Nah, they did what we told them to do, which was get aligned. And then what we didn't tell them to do was lose two of the top 4 quarterbacks in the league, probably, right?
BIC went the opposite way. They're gonna hate me for this. All that cocky, talking shit on the internet, laughing, God's plan this, blah, blah, blah. They weren't worried about the one loss in the regular season. All that to be on vacation right now. They're in Cancun. BIC was too arrogant about being the former champs. And I've said it on this podcast before. I've said it in private conversations. Heavy is the head that wears the crown. Winning the chip 2 times in a row is quite possibly one of the most difficult things to do. That's not shade to whoever wins it. I'm just telling you, running it back is not easy. So if you don't maintain the hungry attitude, have the right players in, and have faith in those players, and adjust when you have to adjust, whether who's there or not, you're going to end up in a situation with BIC, who literally barely lost the game. And if you ask certain people, BIC didn't lose that game. The refs did. Honestly, but you don't get in that situation unless you handle business in the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, up until a 4th and 10 where you let somebody get a first down on you. Handle business. If you were focused all season and not worried about dudes running off to flag championships, BIC is sitting here. But guess what? They're not. And I'm kind of tired of like.
Yeah, that's airing the
narrative
that's
kind of
airing the dirty laundry. That's the dirty.
I don't miss them in the championship right now. I don't. And I played on both teams, so I think I'm probably the only person that could be this harsh with both of them. Because I played on both and won a championship on both. If I was on either team at this point, hey, we need a quarterback. Moon's not it. I love Moon, but he's not it. BIC, have faith in the fucking players that show up every Sunday. You see, your game shouldn't be dependent on a Kyle Ward or a Mike Riddick or a Big Dippy who haven't shown up for you. Keep focus on your core and get those guys good. And then when the superstars show up, then you could blow teams out, I guess. But I don't know. Either way, those teams didn't want it as bad as the Watchmen wanted it. And that's just me being purely honest with you. The Watchmen wanted it more than the U and BIC combined. And they kind of proved it by making it as far as they did.
Well, do we want to do the in memoriam later? Because I think one thing I want to do is show everybody that if you're asked who to pick, you could just deny it. But I think that when we look at the games this weekend, and Rob, I think just calling everybody out and just letting them know what it was. It's the most 3-on-1 podcast type of thing that we needed to do in a week where nobody's playing from Jersey. We had to just call Jersey out because you already know. Oh, but anyway, Watchmen, Nightcrawlers. What is your predictions for this game, gentlemen?
Deontay Henderson is going to get big hits. Bagway's going to do something amazing. Bro, I'm being honest, I can't call the game. I can't give you a score. I can't. I can't.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, if you are asked on a podcast to forcefully make a prediction, you don't have to give the score and say the Vegas spread. So, Matt, what is your takeaway from our matchup that we're about to see in approximately 70-ish hours?
I don't want to sit on the fence, but this is the hardest game to predict all season. Because there are so many questions, there are so many concerns. I'll tell you what I think is going to decide the game. I think whoever sets the tone first on defense, whether that's Deontay Henderson or Nick Mays, that's going to answer the call. And I think that this Baltimore Watchmen team wants it more, and Tampa wants it. Tampa wants revenge over this team more than anything.
Right.
And that's that's the thing, is Baltimore wants the championship more than oxygen, because they want the validation they haven't had in the last 5 seasons, and they want to shut at least us 3 dummies up.
But
exactly.
Tampa
the Nightcrawlers want to win this game more than they want anything. More than the chip, more than the money, more than anything, they want to beat Baltimore because they got sunned in the last 2 minutes of that game. They got okey-doked, and then they had to take that long flight home to Tampa. So I want to give the Nightcrawlers the edge, because will the Watchmen be locked in? As locked in as the Nightcrawlers for those 60 minutes? Because are they looking ahead to Bullhead? Are they talking about travel plans? Is this a thing to where, we think they're looking past everybody? Like we talked about with the Chaos. And we talked about with the Insomniacs. They looked like they were just waiting for the next game a couple of times this season. Like when the Insomniacs were playing Uno on the fucking sideline. That to me is the bigger question, and that's why I give the Nightcrawlers the slight edge, because they want to win this game more than any other game they've played in this league. And I think that's a dangerous thing, because they're going to give it their all because they know they have a bye week after this. Is Baltimore going to be and Rob Corey, you've stood across from these guys, playoff games, regular season. You understand the mentality Baltimore football plays with. Am I off base with this?
I think that the thing about this game is every point that you make, it seems like there is an annoying counterpoint that's sitting there, right? So when I say something to the effect of that the Watchmen, big guys, right? The trench guys for the Watchmen that I've seen on film at least are not only deeper, but they look bigger and better and stronger. Well, you know what the equalizer for that is a guy like Mark Bagway, right? So you don't have to have an offensive line. If Mark Bagway is going to be able to make that guy miss like he did against the rare breed, which with a lot of these similar players, and make the accurate throws off balance, downfield, all that, that's one of those points. You mentioned it, Matt. There's not one team the Nightcrawlers want to beat more, I think, in this entire league than the Baltimore team. But as much as those Nightcrawlers, I think, are motivated by that game last year, all year we talked about how the rare breed got beat in a game that they won. So I think just as focused as the Nightcrawlers are, the Watchmen are sitting there saying, like, yo, we got a chance to blow this team out, prove that we're better, and erase that, oh, yeah, we won, but we had to off of a Maryland special and putting Lenny Manziel in and all these other caveats. So it's as much as you're right, Matt, I think that if the Nightcrawlers had a BIC, they might still be dancing if they're scoring 40 and they lose by 3, right? I think that this is the best case scenario for a league in a Final Four that, in my opinion, the other game that we haven't talked about yet, if you were asking me my prediction would be that this game and all of the storylines and all of the great plays and the drama and I think a nail-biting type of finish, I think it makes up for what we get. Maybe could be a shocker, could be surprising, but I think if you ask the odds makers, it's more likely a clunker in the other matchup that we're getting in Ohio with the air quotes home team against Vegas.
I want to bring up something about that, to be honest, because in conversations I've had with the division owners of both clubs, I've been asked point blank by at least one of them, what's the mercy rule plan for a playoff game? That's both the energy Cincinnati and Vegas are walking into that game with. And we'll get into that game in a second. But someone in the chat brought up championship points. Championship points were a big factor in the win for the Watchmen. It was a big factor in the UBIC game. The ability to convert points or convert 10 to 5 yards at a time is going to be a huge part of this game. And Logo Davis able to do that, Mark Bagway able to do that. For the Watchmen, they have Omari Thomas, but I don't know if he's going to have that great of a day against Deontay Henderson and what the Nightcrawlers throw at them in terms of a defensive look. And then the quarterback concern. Can John Gauze create those opportunities to get chunks of 5 to 10 yards end over? And we know Raheem Chaney can do it. But is that something John Gauze will be able to do on his healthiest season since what, 2018?
2019.
Yeah,
no,
2019.
2021. He was healthy in 2021.
He was healthy that whole season. My thing is another hidden matchup, and we really don't know the inner workings of what the Nightcrawlers are doing, like on the sideline in between plays and things. Because we all know that those guys are all high-level football guys. But the one thing that I think that the Watchmen come in with is a guy like O.G. Buck, like Ricardo Freeman, guys that have so much experience in this game that they can draw up and kind of act as that manager, that player coach on the sideline to make those adjustments. What we've seen in our brief time watching the Nightcrawlers is they show up, they ball, and they win most of the time. So if that's one of those hidden points, hidden yardage situations The one thing that I think that Mark Bagway has to be careful of is in the game last year against the Rare Breed, he had a couple more turnovers than he should have. If he gets rid of the turnovers in this game, I think that there's no way that you can beat a guy that completes over 60% of the passes and can run for 90 yards on any play.
Why would he be worried about turnovers if he's not the starting quarterback?
Is he not the starting quarterback in this big game, though? Because as great as Logo Davis looked, they were playing the O-Town Orange, led by Devon Gray.
There you go again, trying to dictate.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
You can't listen. If they believe in Logo Davis, why not start him? You know what I'm saying? Like, why not keep him there? Because at the end of the day, yeah, he looks like he can get the job done. And if Mark Bagway feels like look at what Trey Robinson is doing. I don't want to like shit on Scooter because Trey Robinson's there. The same way I don't really want to shit on Logo because Bagway's there. It's kind of the same energy when it comes to that. So I'm not like in the beginning of the season, I'm like, oh, you guys believe in Scooter? Once Scooter proved himself, which again, I give you that, Corey, Logo hasn't really had the opportunity to do. I agree. But
which isn't his fault. It's not his fault.
Yeah. It's not his fault at all.
We'll find out.
So once Scooter showed he was that guy, I've never mentioned Trey Robinson at quarterback again until they put bum-ass Q in, and he stunk up the joint. That was a free shot. You know that was coming. But other than that, I haven't really worried about Trey Robinson at quarterback. So I kind of feel the same when it comes to the Nightcrawlers. Logo showed me enough in one game, unfortunately, to show me that he has some reads, he can throw, he can run if he has to, and I didn't see too much to make me feel like, okay, this guy might be a liability in the long run, or you know what I'm saying? I didn't see any of that.
Yeah, I'm not nervous about it, but I do know how good Rock Briscoe looked against Vegas all season last year for the Force. And when you play that next level of competition that you're not necessarily used to, we talked about it with Sick With It, right? Jeremy Geary, I think, is a really good quarterback in this league. When he's faced the Insomniacs in that championship game, he didn't look as good as he did all season because pressure, it just makes guys a different person. Jerry Urias, the other quarterback for Sick With It, all season, he looked like he was better than everybody else in the league, should have had his own team. Well, when you get a pressure in a guy's face, it's not that he's bad. And I'm not saying Logo Davis, if he gets pressure in his face from a guy like Nick Mays or a guy like Freight Train, right, is bad. I'm just saying, if you're not used to it and you have to take a couple of possessions to get, comfortable and start to produce, look what happened to Sick With It. Once Jeremy Geary made the adjustment, he started taking off and getting the free yardage. It was a little bit too late. So, I mean, this game, I think, is going to live up to all the hype. I think it might exceed the hype. And I think, as much as we talk about DRC, which I really respect the guy coming out here and loving football and playing the game.
I honestly don't think we talk about him a lot. I think you talk about it. We really don't talk about it.
I think our marketing department likes to talk about it. But DRC, Dr. C, I think that he either is just going to be what he is, which is a great level player that takes care of business. He might even come to play in a different, because I've heard from those guys, my guy Flacco Rican, he says that when DRC plays corner, wide receiver, running back, whatever, he balls out, and I wouldn't doubt it whatsoever. So I think the thing that Matt says is like we're going to see who they are. They could surprise us, and we could be sitting here shocked. But I think I don't think anybody's surprised that the Watchmen made it this far. I just think that we're obviously a little bit Jersey biased, and we're looking at a team like BIC thinking like, yeah, they beat you head to head. All they got to do is take care of business against the U, and they were just that inch short. And now we're sitting here with a Baltimore super team ready, and maybe the favorite left. But they might not even make it out. This is a crazy Final Four.
Yeah, so
is it the craziest Final Four we've had in league history? In terms of geography, it is. But Rob, what was the craziest Final Four we've had?
Right?
Geography-wise, yeah, it's crazy. But as far as a Final Four where I feel like all four teams are competitive, I don't think it's that crazy.
Well, I mean, let's just call it out for what it is. And shout outs to all those guys over at the Sin City Chaos for a true expansion team, right? Not like the Insomniacs, who they've been in the league, but it's a whole new cast of players. Not like the Watchmen, who these are all guys that have played before and it's just a new name. The Chaos, most of these guys never played A7FL ball before and beat teams like the Heist, like the Crush, and like another new team in the Volcanoes. I think the Chaos should be really excited for what their future is and how well they fared this season. The problem is that they've been asking for this smoke that they're about to get for so long that I don't know if their lungs are going to be able to handle it, and they're going to be coughing up some Dave Chappelle level half-baked lungs on all of the smoke that they've been asking for, because once they posted that picture of the Sin City, the Las Vegas logo and their team picture, I think it refocused. You know, I was talking to RTC Wilkerson, we call him Bravado Wilkerson over here, but he gave me a call, and he along with his other teammates for the Insomniacs, as great as they've been and as much shit as they talk, they were doing the right thing. They were looking for tape to watch the Ohio team so that they would be prepared. I don't even know if you could say that about a team like the Nightcrawlers, who are superiorly talented. And yeah, they're probably watching film to have an idea, but not trying to break it down. If Vegas comes out here,
I think a lot of that
on a mission,
has to do. Sorry, Corey.
No, I'm done.
I think a lot of that has to do with the philosophy, and we look at the different philosophies of each division, and I think Vegas is more like the Northeast than Florida is like the Northeast, because the Nightcrawlers built a team off of just athletes, psychotically talented athletes, and we haven't seen them play a full A7FL season. They've played the Florida tournament, which is basically the G1 of Florida football. But we've seen the Insomniacs kind of take on that college football kind of mentality. They're doing film sessions, they're doing skull sessions. 90% of the players on that team, I think, are coaches at some level of youth football. And I think high school football leading up to, like, I think at the JUCO level, there might have some coaches or some people who work at that level. But you also have a guy like Kenny Mack who played on Saturdays. Yeah. But you guys got guys like Kenny Mack who played on Saturdays. You have so many different people who have played at that level. And I think that philosophy has served them well. And I think the Chaos the exact same way, too, because the people that lead that team come from a coaching mindset. And I think those are the elements that will help these teams in the long run. I think the thing that serves Baltimore better is that instinctual memory. They know how to play this game like the back of their hand. If I just said, Rob, Corey, right now, go play an A7 game with 5 other guys running offense, you'll know how to do it. Corey has done it with me, with my fat ass. I have run plays with Corey Hammond. He knows in an A7 style system how to get things done and what goes where. I think that's the advantage that Baltimore has over the other 3 teams in this playoff, is their institutional knowledge of this game. Not of football, but of A7FL football, because Rob brings it up all the time, and he is right, and Corey does too. This is not traditional football. It's better. It's much better. And you have to change your tendencies. You have to look at the game differently. I think you have to study. To be a great coach or leader in this league, you have to watch an NBA coach. You have to watch an NHL coach. Because the way you switch your lineup, the way you develop tendencies, there's 5 guys on an NBA court. There are 6 guys, that's including the goalie, in an NHL rink. And you have to always keep these key pieces moving in and out, being able to adjust and switch on the fly. And the NBA and the NHL is a more direct comp too, because the clock moves faster. In the NFL, it can take 5 fucking years to finish a quarter. In the A7FL, it takes significantly less time. More time when we have commercials, but that's how we stay alive. of course, Skillshare. Go to a7fl.tv/Skillshare.
No?
That was absolutely wrong, but we've been absolutely wrong a few times this season. A few teams are going to Cancun or Asbury Park. Come on, it's the Jersey Shore. But we have another game to talk about before we get out of here, and it's a game between two teams that have incurred a lot of respect, begrudgingly, and a lot of derision, and that's the Las Vegas Insomniacs and the Sin City Chaos. That is our final game of the playoffs before the championship game. That's our 4 o'clock game. That is the last time we will be broadcasting, me, Rob, and Corey, from Asbury Park Stadium for another 9 months. We won't be in Cincinnati, but we will be calling the games live. Sadly, Rob will not be trying Skyline Chili live on the air, but when we fly out to Vegas, I feel like there's a Skyline Chili out there, so we'll do that there. But Rob, Corey, when we look at this game, we were giving the Chaos a little bit more credit than usual last week. I don't know how you guys are feeling heading into Sunday, but you were talking about the billboard material thing. At this point, if you need that to get you going, if that's the thing that's... Because we'll come out. I watch the other side of the ball. Corey watches the other side of the ball. Rob can't be bothered. But he also doesn't answer our texts until like a day and a half later. So it's more of him being busy and having his fancy hair. I'm jealous of your hair, Rob. I can't do it. I couldn't be able to do it. Kristaps Porzingis could. I couldn't. And I think there's a reason for that. But when we look... When we look at that game,
if you were 7 foot, you could do whatever you want.
That's true. That's true. I am nowhere near 7 feet tall. But when we look at this game, guys, and we look at these teams, I don't know if that, and we talk about the other side of the ball, if that's the thing that's pissing you off, if that's the billboard material you have heading into Sunday, that ain't great. If that's the thing that pisses you off, if that's the thing where it's like, oh, y'all done fucked up now, and it's
them but that's all manufactured.
I want to go first. Wait, hold on, Corey. I want to go first here because I know both teams think for whatever reason I don't like them and, oh, I'm a hater and whatever. I'm just, because I'm going to go, because Mama said if you don't got nothing nice to say, you shouldn't really say nothing at all. So I'm just going to say my piece really quick. Well, maybe not quick, but I'm going to get it out there. All right. So, with the Insomniacs had one opportunity this year, multiple, but really one, to show us that they're the team we thought they were. And in a game as important, and again, I'm only talking about the first half, because for some reason they think I care what the final score was, when it took them a full half to adjust. At no point in a championship-level game should you be taking out your starting quarterback to put in someone who doesn't look like a starting quarterback. And if they go, and I said it last week or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, I'm going to say it again. If the Insomniacs go in there with that attitude, then the game against the Chaos is going to be a lot closer than we think. Because the Insomniacs in the second half showed that they were a much better team than Sick-Witted, showed why I avoided talking about Sick-Witted, because personally, I didn't think Sick-Witted could hang with the Insomniacs. Yes, I understand their number one returner was hurt, blah, 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 and all this other stuff. I get all that. But if most of your points are coming from special teams, there's a problem. Your offense isn't getting it going. You're already getting limited snaps, blowing everybody out every week. You're not really getting the necessary reps that you need to show that when your backs are against the wall against a good team, that you can actually fight from that position to scrape out a win. I have not seen that from the Insomniacs. The Insomniacs have not seen that from the Insomniacs. So in the first half against a decent team in the Sick-Witted, when the end of that first half is 13-13 or whatever it was, or it was very close, and the only reason why they started blowing it up was because of returns, I have an issue with that. Because this is supposed to be a very high-powered offense, high-powered defense. Why are you in a Why are you in a fight with what? Well, I don't get it. Why are you in a fight with Sick with it? And then they did compare it to what we saw from the Watchmen and the U. I'm gonna be very clear on the distinction between the two. The U were doing everything they could to win. The Insomniacs were having fun. If you say I'm lying, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know how you think I'm lying about that, or how you think the Insomniacs looked like they were just having fun in that first half, while the U were literally doing everything they possibly could to stay in that game against the Watchmen. You can't compare the two games, even if the scores seem similar. The storylines and what was actually going on in those games were very different. Yes, the U got shut out in the second half, but that was due to adjustments made by a better team. The reason why the Sick with it got destroyed in the second half is because the Insomniacs decided to play football for real. Do you see the difference in that? There's a huge difference in it. Now, chaos. The reason why I don't care about the chaos, the reason why I get very quiet when we talk about the chaos is I personally don't think there's anything to talk about. They said it earlier, you guys are an expansion team. You guys are the realest version of an expansion team in the A7FL. And it's very unfair to you guys because you're actually going up against 3 teams. You know, you're not going up against them, but it's 3 teams with you that have experience in this league. Trey Robinson by himself has been on the Northeast, he knows. The Florida guys played Rare Breed last year. Baltimore is Baltimore. They've been everywhere. So it's kind of unfair that you guys are tossed into the fire like that. What would be more surprising to me, I don't know, maybe not surprising. My disappointment in the Chaos versus Insomniacs game would come from the Insomniacs allowing the Chaos to hang around. That would be my disappointment from the Insomniacs. And my disappointment from the Chaos would be laying down and letting the Insomniacs just walk all over you.
Yeah,
So
like 70 something.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
Now, if the Chaos get washed, I promise, listen to what I'm saying to you. If the Chaos get washed on national television, and this game is right before the championship, if they get washed, I will never speak about the Chaos again. I will literally mute myself when we talk about the Chaos. I will turn off my camera. I will not talk about the Chaos ever again.
Well, Rob, let's put it into context for guys, and shout outs to the Ohio division, shout outs to all these new teams, everything like that. How did it go for California when they first got to the Final Four, their inaugural season?
They got destroyed. Everybody's in Cancun. Everyone got destroyed.
How did it work out? How did it work out for the Florida team when they first came into the Final Four? So what the Chaos, my thing with the Chaos, and I'll talk about their actual breakdown of the game in a second, but what the Chaos have been asking for all year is the opportunity to play, what the 3-on-1 would say in air quotes is a real team, and they've fished their wish. They are going to play what we would all agree is a pretty real team, and the fact, Rob, that you're disappointed in the way that the Insomniacs looked in a win shows that you do respect who they are. You just wanted more from them and were disappointed in what they gave you. So anybody who thinks you're hating on the Insomniacs, for you to be disappointed in how they looked in a win against the team in Sick With It that we ranked in our top 10 almost every week, that's actually a compliment more than it is anything, in my opinion. So take your compliments where you get them. Use the bulletin board material.
Real men on that team understand my point. Understand that I'm not shitting on them. The real men have spoken to me and have acknowledged that it's more of a tough
You're talking to the same people that I'm talking to. Like, if you want more attention, go find yourself a place where you get the ball more than once every 3 games. So that's that thing. But what I will say about the Chaos is that they've got what they wanted, right? They got a chance. Now, the crazy thing about football is that guess what we will do if they win? We will absolutely 100% flip-flop on the take because it will be real at that point. And if they somehow are able to do the miraculous thing and
Rob
win,
going full pineapple, going, nah, son. He's giving you the nah, son right now.
Give me a second. This is what I think.
I'm going to take a stance here. I'm not flipping on any fucking take. If the Chaos win, the Insomniacs suck. That's the
Fair.
take.
I was going to ask a question for the chat, but Corey, go ahead.
Well, let me just say this about Chaos, and hold on to that question from the chat. Me and Rob, the tech savvy guys we're using our phones as our cameras, can't read the chat. Shout out to the chat. I'm sure you guys are all positive about Corey Hammond tonight, as you always are. But the Chaos, to me, what their identity really has been all season, and what I heard from those guys early on when they first joined the league, is that their background is most of those guys are semi-pro guys, and most of their defense are they've played together, and they're one of the tougher defenses in semi-pro. And Rob, answer the question, semi-pro matters.
We're all semi-pro guys.
I know, but what I'm saying is that if their identity...
No. They have to let that shit go. They're the new guys on the block. They don't know how this shit works. If you think telling us, well, we're not just fly guys, bro, we're all that.
Yeah.
The same year I won a championship in 2016 with BIC, I won a semi-pro championship the same year. Whoop-de-fucking-do. What does that mean? It doesn't mean anything.
I'm not saying that the semi-pro matters. What I'm saying is that togetherness matters. The togetherness matters, and the fact that they've played with each other means that they might have a pretty good scheme. They have an understanding of what their strengths and weaknesses are. And my take would be that I do expect the Chaos defense to hold the Insomniacs to about 40-something points. I mean, you can say that, but I think
Corey, I thought you were gonna say 21-18 under 30.
That's insane because I think Don J. Lyons is gonna have at least one, maybe even two returns on the 3-on-1, which is something that we're not even talking about. I don't think the Chaos know how to do a 3-on-1 coverage at all.
You understand 40 points is a win in most of these games? You said 40 points.
But for the Chaos to do that to the Insomniacs offense that's been averaging approximately 60, that's a win. Now, what I don't think that the Chaos can do at all, and we'll see what Skylar Hurd and Keno Thomas and those boys have, I don't think that they're going to be able to get anything that they want on offense. And they might get like the one or the two touchdowns that Vegas teams give up because they go with the elbow tackle because they know Monday's coming. But for the Chaos to win this game, they have to prove to me, I think we need to show that. They have to prove to me that they can do something on offense that matters and not just have their quarterback run around and just be a better athlete. Because as great as Keno Thomas has been in Ohio play, I don't think that any of that garbage is going to work at this level. And if they think that that's how they're going to score more than 40, because the Insomniacs are going to play Insomniacs football. RTC is healthy. Scooter, when he's in, calls run plays, sets up play action. Davik, Munch, Trey, whoever it is that he's throwing the ball to, make plays. And we'll see what that Chaos defense can do. And guys, this just in, my wife's been working.
That's fire. Nah, that's fire.
That's amazing.
That's fire. That's fire.
So live, in color, and completely spontaneous, tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. You can go and get the favorites, but keep an eye out because you already know what's coming. So for me, let's put a bow on this game. I think if the Insomniacs don't win by a score that's like 42-6, that I think we'll be surprised. But I'm all for a surprise. Let's see.
Listen. For me to gain respect for the Chaos and understand that they're a way better team than I gave them credit for, a win is not what is going to get it for. Believe it or not, the win is not going to do it. I have to see that the Insomniacs are literally doing everything that they can possibly do to win, and the Chaos is they're hanging around. And it's a 2-score, it's a 1-score, it's a championship point, it's an actual battle. My problem with the Chaos team, when I say things like it's a game of matchups and adjustments, I promise you they have no fucking clue what I'm talking about. I promise you that. I promise you. because in order to understand what that means, you have to have had competition throughout the regular season, on multiple seasons, to understand that sometimes Big Rob's not the man for the job right now. Pull him. Take him off the field.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to put in someone else. And for this specific play, for this specific series, for this group of defensive linemen they pull out, being able to adjust on the fly, and it doesn't come from the sideline, guys. I'm telling you that as well. It doesn't come from the coach. It doesn't come from the team manager. It comes from the 7 guys that are on the field dealing with it. If I'm blocking this guy and I'm telling you, yo, he's fooled. Left, yo, dive left, he's fooled. That's not coming from the sideline. That's coming from a lineman to the quarterback, call the play, let's go. And when I've been in situations where I've done that countless amount of times. And a few of those plays turned into touchdowns. So it's not like that's being able to adjust on the fly. That's being able to give your quarterback the tools to win, because that's what it's about. If the offensive lineman can read the defense for the quarterback, it makes his job that much easier. And if the chaos aren't used to having to adjust, and it doesn't mean that they're bad football players, it doesn't mean any of that. It means they're novices, they're amateurs when it comes to this league. This is their first year. If they had,
you know what it means, Rob?
If they had a regular season where they were knocking heads with the best of the best and guys that have been doing it, I think they'd be okay. And I think they've learned how to adjust, but because they haven't gone through that gauntlet, when someone punches in their mouth, shouts to them for winning in overtime against the Covington Heights, because they showed it there. But you heard what I said. Win in overtime against the Covington Heights. It was an impressive score. Impressive. But none of the teams that you're going to play are going to give you that chance. None of them.
Well, and they brag about this all the time. To finish your point, Rob, they brag about this all the time. They've only played like 10 or 11 quarters all season. Well, you know what happens when you're undefeated on JV and you all of a sudden have to play a varsity squad?
That's what the chaos are going to run into. I'm telling you,
40 to 6.
They're going to think it's hate. They're going to think, oh, I'm just talking, or whatever the hell they be thinking in their brains. Yo, listen to what I'm saying to you clearly. Y'all couldn't wipe our boots in Jersey. If it really came down to having the whole Ohio come here and play every Sunday, y'all probably wouldn't win a game. You probably wouldn't, and it's not because you suck. It's not that. It's a game you don't understand yet. All I saw was your quarterback dropping back and running around. Jeremy Geary was doing that shit, and that's why I think Sick With It sucks. That doesn't work here. It just doesn't. It doesn't.
You know what it is, right? It's that first play when Chaos are on offense and the Insomniacs are on defense, and AJ McQuaid literally lifts up the guy blocking him and throws him at Corey Bridges, the number 1, semi-pro running back in the world, right? And he tackles Corey Bridges by throwing his offensive lineman into him. And then they have to go back in a huddle after something crazy like that just happened. And then they look at each other and they're like, wait, are we going to be able to finish this game? Because they talk about how short their games have been. I think it's just as likely that game ends in the mercy rule that we had to kind of ask about, right? Then it's a game that's down to the wire and it's a one-possession game. So I want to let everybody know from Ohio Division and specifically the Sin City Chaos that they've had a great season and they should be proud of themselves. But they should also cancel or talk to their booking agent for the trip that they already booked to Vegas if they have no intention on watching the live 3-on-1 podcast in person, because that would be the reason that they show up, not a chance to actually play on the field unless they want to play in that flag tournament.
Rob just looks mad dejected right now. I just have the camera on an ISO shot of you, Rob. You just look so like, I can't believe this motherfucker just said this. I can't believe we here. Why are we not in Nevada already? Why are we not in the Airbnb with the Jaffos? Like, that. We got to talk about that. We are going to be out in Bullhead City championship weekend, and It's kind of hilarious that we'll be staying with the All-Pro Jaffos, friends of ours. Our whole production team, for the most part, a couple people have to stay back home, but a bunch of us are going out there. It's going to be a real interesting time, and it is going to be a lot of chaos and a lot of calamity, and in the little bit of time we have left
too, right?
to... What was that?
The other side of the ball is staying out there too, right?
Yeah. We'll be hanging out with Scott McCorkle and Anthony Alvarez all weekend.
Yeah, it's going to be...
like your drinks.
Well, yeah, based on what they sometimes talk about. And let me just say this. Chris Vera, I know that you're really excited to race the winner of Matt Ryan and Casey Cox because, you're all about that Madden rookie mode. But me, Matt, Rob, we're working on the way that we're going to do this competition. I know that you wanted to cover me, phrasing in the me play cornerback, which obviously as a quarterback, I know that you know the difference, my guy. You want to, somehow embarrass me by running a wide receiver route, which is fair and likely. But I also think that we have to add a little bit more stakes to that because either you racing one of the announcers or you running a wide receiver route on a pocket quarterback. I don't want to test you too much, and I know that your net worth is a little bit higher to be doing physical activities out on that field. But I think we got something cooking up for the other side of the ball in our little competition of sorts. You saw the tinyurl.com shirt that's about to be posted soon. So eyes out for that, but I'm not ducking.
Leave me out the competition, yo. Leave me out the competitions. It's 99 degrees in Arizona on a cold day.
Rob, so it's going to be like 58 inside.
I'm hot, Matt. I'm hot. I'm hot, Matt.
Rob's going to be doing he's going to wear a white T-shirt, and on accident, it's going to be a wet T-shirt competition for Rob. It would be against himself, phrasing all the way, but. We even want to do the in memoriam.
Rob's facial reactions to the show tonight have been some of my favorites since we've done video shows, because it's just been disdain, disgust, and just gut laughs, and that's my favorite part of the show, is just watching you guys through the OBS system I have and just reacting to you guys reacting. But we do have that race coming up, and unlike other shows, we try not to focus on that because we focus on football, and I do play it up a little bit on that show because it's funny. They have a lot of fun over there. They have a great studio. I really have to say the shows the past couple of weeks have been really good to listen to. The last couple of weeks have been some really good podcasts.
You want to know why?
You going to say something?
You want to know why?
See, Rob, I dropped it subtly, and then you come in here swinging a fucking tack hammer, just going for heads and dicks. Just swinging at heads and swinging at dicks, hitting anything that moves.
Phrasing.
But we can talk about it. We can give him something to talk about.
What's the chat saying? Probably glowing reviews of them.
Front row seat, baby. Can't wait. A lot of people saying they're going to win. This is not going to age well for you guys. Now I've got my fan on high because it's 89 degrees outside and my AC is blasting. But bring down my board a little bit. This is why I wanted to use Vimeo, by the way. When it comes to the game on Sunday, and when it comes to what we're seeing the game we're seeing this Sunday, I'm excited. I'm excited for all those games. But to talk about the other thing, I guess we have to talk about it. Next week, they're going to give us more terms. Chris Vera, as Corey said, wants to race me if I beat Casey, and Casey wants to do this and that, and there's a physical challenge and a bathing suit competition. I think I have to answer questions about foreign policy. I don't even fucking know anymore. But I'm gonna say it again, and we're gonna end the show with this. Do not throw rocks at a man with a machine gun, because I am here for a reason. I have this microphone for a reason. Do not get yourself hurt by me and this microphone, because you can't heal emotional wounds. You just can't. Unless you get therapy, which I heavily suggest for everybody. When I have this microphone in my hand, it is a deadly weapon. Do not play games with me. That is all I'm going to say. But I have to live by the creed of this podcast. I have to live by the identity, the manifest, the mission statement, all that razzmatazz. I'm not going to say it yet. But for Big Rob Fabian, for Corey Hammond, the Run Matt Run shirts will be on sale tomorrow at tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. That's tinyurl.com/A7FL merch. And I'm feeling a little charitable, too, and I think we're going to give away some of the money to a cause and play nice with the other side of the ball. We'll donate some money to some charitable organizations that are near and dear to their hearts, because we're all about a community here. It's all football. It's all fun. We're making ha-has on a podcast. But seriously, I will break you. But for Big Rob Fabian, for Corey Hammond, I'm Matt Ryan, saying as always, don't be